The following is a special edition of the Weekly Outlook podcast in celebration of the 150th anniversary of Alexander City.
Welcome to the Weekly Outlook. I'm Caitlin Fleming, Managing Editor for Tallapoosa Publishers. Today's episode features TPI Talk host Scott Hardy and his guest Larkin Radney discussing the history of Carlisle Drugs and the Coca-cola bottling plant in Alexander City.
Welcome back and thanks for joining us for another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy and it has been an honor to be able to partner with the Outlook to be able to highlight and spotlight members of the community as we reflect back on the 150th anniversary of Alexander City. Today I'm joined by someone who I would say is a spokesperson and one of the biggest advocates for Alex City and someone who has had a lot to do with the trajectory of our community, and that's Mr. Larkin Radney. Larkin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
being here.
So Larkin, first I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about, what your experience was like growing up in Alex City.
Scott, it's all been good. I'll say growing up, I literally grew up and raised on Monroe Street, which is a block away from what used to be the old Russell Hotel. It's now Piggly Wiggly, so I basically grew up downtown. And for all of us kids in that area, we used downtown as a playground, so we were there a good bit. And of course, almost daily we went to Carlisle Drugs. That was a must.
Yes, sir.
But growing up in Alex City at that time was very simple. We would leave at sun up and come back at sundown, and our parents didn't have to worry too much about us. It was a simple time in life at that time, but very positive. I have nothing but positive remembrances of growing up in Alex City.
Yes, sir. And as we've been doing these interviews, that seems to be a common theme, is just how safe it was. And, people spend a lot of time going outside and walking downtown. And I know there's been a reemergence of the activity downtown, but I know during your time period, downtown really was the focal point of Alex City.
Well, no, definitely. There was no 280 bypass, and so downtown was the place to be, and in my opinion still is. So it's the heart of the city. I'm big in Main Street, the Main Street organization, and since 1996 we've been very active in trying to improve downtown in all different sort of ways. But yeah, downtown was the center of all of the universe as far as us kids were concerned. Especially on Saturdays, and now that Saturdays are, the lake is here and very popular, so Saturdays are not as active as they used to be, but we're working on that.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah. You spoke about Carlisle's, and for those who don't know, you're the current owner of Carlisle's now, but could you give us a little insight into the history of the business and maybe what it was before Carlisle's?
Yeah, Kenny Riley and I actually own the building. We actually own 3 buildings there, from the railroad to the alley, what used to be City Hall. So we bought that in 2005, and we have leased those buildings out for the most part. But then in 2018, we actually took over the operation of the soda fountain there. So we've enjoyed that. COVID has been a challenge, but Carlisle's has done well and continues to do well. Carlisle's really, growing up and even later, was sort of the center point of downtown. If you came downtown, you went to Carlisle's. And it's always been that way. My mother made a diary when she was 13, which would have been 1931. She had a diary through the summer, and every day she went to Carlisle's, and sometimes twice a day. She always bragged on the limeades. So
yes, sir.
It's really funny. And my father, to give you some background on my experience with Carlisle's, my father, his first job at the age of 12 was a soda jerk behind the fountain. So that's sort of, I've got an emotional tie with Carlisle's drugstore.
Yes, sir.
And so we've really enjoyed owning it, and people come in and they seem to enjoy it. But Carlisle's was originally a wholesale retail store of some sort, and the first mayor of Alexander City, Ross Barton, actually owned it. And if you'll go on the train side of Carlisle's and look up at the print, you'll see Ross Barton's name, wholesale retail. He was the first mayor elected in 1972, and evidently before the fire, that building, which is now Carlisle's, was also not only a retail business but also a bar. It had a saloon called the Happy Day Saloon. So
Full service.
Yeah, full service. And so it's got quite a history, a unique history, like so many other buildings in downtown Alex City. But growing up, all of my friends, including my parents, would always come to Carlisle's. So
Yes, sir. And that, I think going to Carlisle's really for kids in this community is a rite of passage. You know, when you get to the middle school, that was something I always looked forward to, was when you got to the middle school, then you could walk over to Carlisle's in the afternoon once school was out. So, and I know that's something that continues today.
Oh, absolutely. The kids from the middle school come in every day. Of course, school's out now, and we miss them. So they come in around 3:30 and leave by 4:30. But it's exciting when they're there. So they enjoy it. We enjoy having them.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, I grew up on South Central, which was, you know, kind of adjacent to the Coca-Cola bottling plant. And I don't really know much of the history behind it, though. It kind of shut down as I was getting older. Could you provide a little insight?
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning. The original Coca-Cola bottling plant was where the square is now.
Okay.
On Calhoun Street. And there was a warehouse in the back in that alley that they actually used to bottle the Coca-Colas. And my grandfather and his brother owned it. It was the Radney's Coca-Cola Bottling Company. And that was in 1903. And they owned it for about 20 years, I believe, and sold it to a veterinarian whose name was Dr. Miller. And Dr. Miller's the one that owned the Coca-Cola plant down off of South Central. Mm-hmm. A funny story about my grandfather. In 1903, when they opened the bottling company, he had an opportunity to buy Coca-Cola stock. And he said that was too much like gambling, and he just wasn't going to do it. So.
Well, yeah, it is, but that could have been a good story to tell later. But that is funny now to reflect back on that. But yeah, I can remember being younger and being able to go in, and that's when, you know, carbonation, you get to see a lot of cool things during that time.
Did you take tours down there from school?
Yes, sir.
So did I. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to see how that works.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about, you know, a funny story, interesting story. Could you give us maybe one or two things that, you know, during your time in Alex City that you look back that you could say are pretty funny or interesting stories about you or your family? In connection to Alex City. We'll say in connection to Alex City.
Scott, I right now I can't think of anything that would be connected to Alex City itself. Of course, you know, my father was on the city council for 16 years, and he was mayor for 12 years. And a lot of funny things happened through that. One being when I got my driver's license in 1963, he said, "Son, drive me to the police station." I said, "Well, why are we going to the police station, Dad?" He said, "Well, you'll see." So he took me, I drove him to the police station. He took me out and introduced me to Chief Patterson. He said, "Chief, my son got his driver's license today. I want you to follow him everywhere he goes."
I'm expecting my first child, my son.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir, in August. So I'm sure I may have to talk to Chief Turner about doing something very similar. But Larkin, we really do appreciate you joining us today. I know you are a wealth of knowledge as it relates to Alex City, and as somebody who's on the city council and involved with Main Street, I can see on a day-to-day basis how involved and your commitment level to continue to make Alex City a great place.
Well,
we do appreciate your efforts.
You know, it's been my home all my life, and I love it, and it's a great place to live. And we just need to keep on working and making it better and better. And try to get the youth to come back.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Well, we have thoroughly enjoyed it, as I said, Larkin. We look forward to speaking to you next time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Enjoyed it, Scott.
This has been another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for the special edition of the Weekly Outlook. To be notified when we upload our next episode, like the podcast on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can support the Weekly Outlook by subscribing at alexcityoutlook.com/subscribe, or click the listener support link below.